Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I am Professor Frulihair and today we are going to be ending the discussion and talking about what we have initially found about the three new characters. Now here at channel Frulihair, of course, whatever I said in the previous video about being the most miserable situation to possibly happen, it came true. It costed all the way up to and including pity to get this bloody character that I am going to talk about named Sadali. And here at channel Frulihair, from now on, he will be considered to be the best character in the game. If you have any complaints, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a take a number sign. We will not be answering any complaints here at channel Frulihair. Anyway, welcome everyone else. Now that I have done my intro, let's get talking about what is important today, which is to do with the update. The update has been pretty interesting here on JP, and I have not made any new videos talking about the update in terms of the Phantom days, because at this point in time, there is still some information missing, and I do not want to put it out there before I have the exact details on, because yeah, there might be a little misconstruement of certain things. But yeah, getting Sadali did cost me a fortune, and it was another miserable pulling case, which is not making a terribly great case for me wanting to continue playing this game, where I just have no luck anymore, apparently, on vision cards or characters. Sweet. I wonder if it has anything to do with I stopped spending money. Anyway, so with that being said, we're going to be, of course, documenting and talking about Peachin's videos that he did, because he did 3 different videos, which is far more than anyone else on the planet did, which is quite a lot. That's saying a ton, right? No, not really. There aren't that many people doing WOTV content on JP even anymore. Yeah. So let's take a look at the 3 cases that I have seen over the past week, or the past, not even 24 hours. Anyway, I'm digressing about a bunch of stuff. So the 3 videos included basically Sadali comps, Sadali, non-Sadali and Flame Sorcerer comps, and then both of the character comps. And let's get that one out of the way, which is this right here. Now, the combination that Peachin went for was truly expensive, and in my opinion, this is one of the most uninteresting yet kind of successful teams to come out of this update. Taking a look at it, it is essentially Flame Sorcerer, Sadali, and Resnick, which basically equates to 3 new 100 cost characters in a short period of time, and together with the combination of vision cards that you see here, which I'm not even going to pretend that I really like them that much, because it's a bunch of holo vision cards. It's like the FF6 vision card, which is really not reliable at the moment to get your hands on, and also the Full Metal Alchemist Glove card, which at this point is basically like kiss that ever happening again before end of service. Like, seriously, I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Prove me wrong, Gumi. But this is really not something I like to talk about too terribly much, because number one, this is pretty unobtainable by basically, I would say, 95% of the people who have accounts at this active accounts at this point. It's just such a tall order to get this working on everything that I would not say that this is particularly great. However, its performance is pretty standout against most of the top meta teams. It was actually really successful, kind of shockingly successful. The combination of these 3 characters completely shut down the #1 meta team in the game. So that's pretty outstanding in terms of a recommendation, in terms of performance, in the fact that I mean, killing Shrek, Gilgamesh, as well as AC Sephiroth, and having all three characters still standing at the end of the match is about one of the highest recommendations for it being the new meta team. Like, really, this team can push back against the top teams that we've been talking about for weeks. Now, while that is generally really good that, Shrekken is finally kind of being brought down a peg after months of domination, it is another problem entirely, but still one that needs to be said, that it's not encouraging that once again, one of the strongest teams in the game, it's just the three most recent characters. WOTV is kind of stuck in a horrible power creep at this point, where essentially only the characters from X amount of months really truly matter and everything else is kind of mediocre, which, yeah, some people are going to respond with, well, I don't care that much. Well, then why are you watching a meta video other than thank you? But in all honesty, there was a pretty big problem with this team, which was against Cloud comps. AC Cloud completely just really shuts this group down. I do believe it was with Cypher. If it wasn't, it doesn't particularly matter because AC Cloud is kind of the linchpin. No, it wasn't. Sorry. It was definitely Spring June as well as a healer in there that did it in. I think it might have been like just yeah, this was essentially the team one. So it is kind of interesting that it does have such polarizing matchups. Like, most of the AC Sephiroth Gilgamesh teams just can't really compete against it. And even Shrek is kind of a little bit powerless against how strong combination of canceling a bunch of effects that Sadali has with the pure DPS that Flame Sorcerer has. And that's, all in all, just pretty interesting that a team like this can just be so good against the most powerful team, but a slightly underperforming team with AC Cloud before this update is now really good. It does potentially point to a kind of rock, paper, scissors meta that could start forming in the highest quality match. It also does mean that there's at least a little bit of movement. Now, while I don't want to be completely doom and gloom on this update, because it's not, it's a good thing when we can say, well, the strongest character has some competition, and really strong competition, where like the three strongest characters just got essentially 3-starred when the opponent got 0 of their units gone, is really good, considering this team also has really good self-sustain. Anyway, it is what it is. And I do want to get this out of the way of just talking about this is the whale thing that most people will not be able to do. I think even on global now, it would be hindsight related. So if you're like wondering like, oh man, I missed the this is still early days. It could be that Fina would be just fine, or Lucielle is actually okay in this setup. Its performance was generally pretty good, but it's still going to be expensive to make, combine, and effectively get working. And again, shelf life is a concern because 3 months seems to be the most recent estimate on like top tier shelf life. Getting harder to recommend. But then let's talk about Flame Sorcerer versus Sadali, which is kind of the thing that I wanted to do at the end of the previous two performance evaluation tests, where we looked at Sadali and we looked at Flame Sorcerer and which one is effectively better. So talking about Flame Sorcerer, Fire Sorcerer, whatever. This guy has actually a fair bit of hype around JP comments because his DPS is just so damn high. This character has pretty good performance most of the time, and in his matchups in combination, I would say that Mono Fire was looking very strong again with the combination of Resnick and Sephiroth, so less you know, not super reliable. I suppose you could do this plus Shawls and have a similar level of performance if you're looking for a substitute for Resnick, but you are cutting out a pretty fantastic support healing unit for no cost limited potential benefits in just regular matchups. But yeah, even with Shrekin, like there were teams that this won against. Flame Sorcerer is, as you can see, with the right equipment, stats and endurance and accuracy is all pretty good across the board. 125 speed is really, really, really nice, and he is consistent at putting out DPS. Having taken a look at that, Peachin, for people who don't know, Peachin's first matches in his videos are usually kind of standouts that feel like they want to be highlighted. Like here, we talked about AC Cloud in the previous setup about how important it was to beating Sadali and Flame Sorcerer. Here, we kind of have the exact same setup with Doom and Cloud, and just looking how it goes against Mono Fire. Like skipping ahead a bit, this is further into the matchup, and as you can see, it's pretty positive looking for just Mono Fire, with all the characters essentially fully healed, having gone through, having cast Curse, and Curse, of course, when it lands, is a major thing. And I cannot comment as to Peachin, whether Peachin is running any particular trust runes to give extra curse resistance, and this is just more of a luck-based thing. But you see here with this character being able to essentially push the healing, keep characters alive, and doing quite well against a water character does state how good this combination is. Of course, Flame Sorcerer is dead on the ground, at least for the moment. And now he's not. So, like, looking at Flame Sorcerer's performance in these matchups, he was definitely a good factor when he was still alive and things were going his way, but he didn't seem to be surviving as well without generally good support, which is kind of the thing that I thought, but it does go a little bit in the contrary to the idea of you are able to run like a healer. With a strong enough healer, it does seem generally good enough to mitigate the need for a tank. And yeah, Shawls is, to be fair, Shawls' replacement here, Resnick, is doing a punch. But looking at the two, I mean, it's strong enough performance. Mono Fire here is looking very, very good, but it is all with new 100 cost units, and I don't think there is too terribly much fudge on. Taking into account the matches with Shawls, in general, it felt at least a little bit overall weaker, which seemed to be why it was generally focused on less. But it didn't seem like it was particularly performing that well. So if you are looking at Flame Sorcerer, it might just be gloves, or it might just generally how do I say this? It might just be gloves, or it might be Mono Fire. That might be essentially what you are. Might be, because again, it's only been 48 hours. And the last one to predict that was Sadali, which once again, I think that Sadali is testing particularly well. Here, again, basically new units. Gilgamesh plus him seems to be looking to be a very, very strong winning combination. Here, pretty much a really, really strong team. Obviously, the best iteration of this would probably have Gilgamesh, but given that the glove party that we saw at the beginning, near the beginning of this video, could take that one out, it could be that we don't see that combination as much, which means that there's more space. But going ahead, one of the significant values for having this team is the amount of cancellation and healing that you get off of Sadali's attacks. It also works in really good combination together with Gilgamesh's attacks, who, as you know, I mean, the primary hits on Sadali, not super strong, but getting a secondary hit off of Gilgamesh is quite a bit of value. And at this point, we can skip ahead a little bit. Healers doing some work to keep alive, but Sadali also doing a fair amount of work. Same. And at this point, it's pretty well and done. And this was the findings of, at the very least, the first party composition that was tested, which is essentially to do with this trio of characters. Of course, Summer Resnick seems to be a sticking member in most parties right now, as opposed to Fina, possibly because of vision card combinations, possibly just because of her aura, just so good in the meta right now. As for Mono Earth, it was kind of okay, but the problem with this one is very obvious. If there's a Shrek in the party, the opposing party, then you're basically pooped at that point. Other than that, I haven't seen too many other combinations that seem to be super noteworthy, at least at the time of recording. Of course, we will keep an eye on it. But this brings me to the end of this video, which is talking about which one is better. Because that's the thing that I kind of hyped up, so I feel like I should answer. Sadali versus Flamesword. Who is the better one of the resources, not considering Professor Frulifru wasted all of his hardly saved up lapis? We'll say I didn't spend a dime. Not a dime! I personally still like Sadali more for the long run because DPS comes and goes. There have been lots and lots of teams that fight based on attrition lately that seem to be just really good at what they do. But there's no doubt in my mind that Sadali has just way too much capability in terms of canceling out a ton of stuff, and his natural synergy with some strong characters such as Gilgamesh and water-based characters can potentially push back more against the fire characters than we are just seeing right now, which fire is looking to be quite competitive. Now, that being said, if you are just a burn everything to the ground kind of thing, then you probably will be quite happy with the guy from fire from the Trials of Mana collaboration, which is, for all intents and purposes, looking to be a strong character. Now, I know that's kind of a non-answer, but my personal side is just going with Sadali. I think he will be better supported, and it will kind of, and again, I am expecting him to get an Esper next week, and if the Esper is primarily damage focused, that will be the one major concern that I have, and at that point, he should be pretty much good to go, but we shall see. With that being said, I would like to highlight one last key finding from all of the videos that we watched here, which is about the newest of vision cards. Yes, that vision card that just came out. It doesn't seem to be factoring into any consideration whatsoever. Now, of course, in the future, this VC might be strictly broken. But for now, at least from JP perspective, it seems to be a no-go and not a hurry. Which is kind of good news because, again, this. So yeah, that is all of my findings. That is my end to this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we will, of course, update this as we find new things. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you later.